Welcome everyone. So in this online class, we are going to look at some ways of ensuring you have an effective PowerPoint for synchronous or live delivery. Throughout this unit, we will cover two sections. 1. Interactivity is key, and 2. Practical tips. Welcome to section 1, where we will look at how important interactivity is. So the number 1 golden rule is keep it interactive. This doesn't mean anything magical or fancy. One simple suggestion is to ask your class if they can hear you, and if so, to reply by typing in the chat box. That is interactive. Always try to start off with an interactive activity. One suggestion is to use polls at the beginning. This will help set the expectation of continuous participation. You could also have a word search as your first slide and give users permission to draw on the whiteboard. Don't give people a chance to tune out. Always remember, death by PowerPoint live online is worse than death by PowerPoint in the classroom, because live online, the only thing a student can see and hear is your slides and you. Always remember that synchronous time is premium time. What do I mean by that? This is where you get to add value. If you simply want to talk over a PowerPoint, record it and let people watch it in their own time. There is no point in asking students to be live at a specific time if they can't interact with you. A good rule of thumb is to ensure that you are showing something on your screen at all times. Students will tune out if they are not engaging with something. Throughout your PowerPoint, it is a good idea to have placeholder slides for polls and activities with instructions as to what you would like the students to do. So I'll show you a quick example of one now. This is an example of a placeholder slide for a poll. The student would use the numbers beside each answer to respond to the poll. So if they think it is the Book of Kells, then they would choose option 1 in the poll. On this slide, I'm going to show you some examples of adaptations from face-to-face class that you can bring into your online class. So in a classroom environment, you might say, "Can I get a show of hands if you have ever?" For this, you can ask the class to use an emoticon or use the raise hand button. If you want a student to share an example, you would simply make them a presenter and then they can talk to the class through their own microphone. If you want students to brainstorm, you could get them to do this in the chat box, and you can also use the breakout group feature, where you can split the class into different groups. If you need to demonstrate how to do something, you could use the application share feature, or you could use the webcam. Some lecturers would have a sheet of paper being recorded by the webcam, showing them working on an equation, for example. If you don't ask questions, learners aren't doing anything. Use questions to stay connected with your learners. Plan your questions in advance. Ensure questions are inviting and relevant. Put questions on the slide so you don't forget them. Seed questions throughout the session. Tell people how they should respond, for example, chat, microphone, and also give them time to respond. If you're designing a PowerPoint to be viewed on a projector or live online, try to adhere to the 7x7 rule. This is no more than 7 bullet points per page and no more than 7 words per line. This is a rough guideline. Don't be too strict with it, but equally don't stray too far from it. It's very hard to stick to. You'll see in this presentation I have sentences longer than 7 words. But always keeping this rule in mind helps you to stay as concise as possible. Also remember what we said earlier. You are the one who adds value to your PowerPoint. Your slide does not need to include all of the text you are going to verbally speak. Also, don't be afraid to use appropriate graphics to help make a point. Some slides might not need text at all. Ensure your images are relevant to the slide's content, otherwise they only distract and confuse. But that is not to say you cannot include images, such as the one on this screen. This image is part of the PowerPoint design and is not distracting. However, as we discussed on the last slide, words should also not dominate your slides. This is boring and causes listeners to tune out. Your voice should contact your words, your slides should not. Okay, so we've now reached the second section where we will go through some practical tips that you can use. Ditch the bullet points. Too many presentations are bullet point crazy. No one will remember 10 bullet points, but they will remember 10 compelling slides. Use each slide to build your case and incrementally tell your story. Consider your slides to be an outline for what you're saying. Try to share one idea per slide. Similarly to the last slide, packing too much information into a slide, even if it is not bullet pointed, will completely undermine its purpose. Remember, the audience often has to process everything that you say while they view the slide. It is best to just have the one message that you want them to take away from the actual slide to be written on the slide. All of the other information you can verbally say. With typography, go for legibility over fun. While you can use a creative font for a slide title, avoid using it for body text. Instead, stick to clean, traditional typefaces like Calibri and Century Gothic. And if you are using a dark background, make the text bold for readability. Chances are you are designing a presentation on a laptop or desktop, and that's a much different size to the final presentation screen. When sizing your fonts, keep in mind that the text should be large enough to be read by the person using a mobile phone to connect to your class. A harmonious palette can easily enhance the look of your entire presentation. There's no need for complex gradients or textures here. You can get excellent results with just the right colors. Try to use no more than 5 colors throughout your PowerPoint design. However, as you know, some colors simply don't work together. For example, red on blue is hard to read, as is white on yellow, and dark-colored text on a dark-colored background. If you struggle to pick colors, go to the resources folder of this session in your Blackboard module EDSU Teaching Online, and you will find links to a few websites that help generate color palettes. You know that 3D white clip art guy that appears in a lot of PowerPoint presentations? He sometimes has a punctuation mark over his head, an exclamation point perhaps, maybe a question mark if he's confused. Try not to use him or others like him. It triggers a yawn. Instead, use meaningful images that add to your course, and do not forget to add in graphics that convey information such as graphs or charts. Adding in clip art just to jazz up a slide does not actually engage students. It's good practice to make the second slide in your PowerPoint something like this one to help remind you to record your live online class. Don't use animations, transitions, or hyperlinks in a presentation you're uploading to Collaborate Ultra. This system removes both and shows a static image of your slides. However, you do have the option to use some extra tools such as a pen and a highlighter. However, use these in moderation as you don't want it to confuse your students and overload your slides. If you do need to have hyperlinks and animations in your presentation, then you should use the option to screen share or application share. If you are using screen share or application share because your PowerPoint has animations, remember to choose your animations and transitions wisely. Creativity is a good thing, but making your text boxes swivel and bounce on your screen isn't actually creative. In fact, all this does is prove to your audience that you have found the animation button and that you don't really know how to use it. That is not to say that you shouldn't use animations, just choose wisely. Some of the ones that work well are fade, fly in, and float in.